Hey kids, so there was a reason why I was telling you about my GPS coordinates and GPS spoofing and how to find your GPS coordinates and all that stuff, right? And I am by no means an expert. I never served in the military or any type of career where, you know, but I'll tell you to the best of my ability what I know. So what's GPS spoofing? GPS spoofing is when a counterfeit radio signal is transmitted to a receiver antenna to counteract and override a legitimate GPS satellite signal. It's often a form of cyber attack perpetrated by bad actors attempting to steer goods or people off course. Anyway, GPS spoofing can be used to steal shipments, send boaters into the hands of pirates, or project a false location. Global Positioning System, or GPS technology, is standard part of many businesses and used by many consumers. Anyway, it goes on, tells you about what GPS spoofing is. The U.S. GPS system is made up of 31 satellites known as Navstar. That's interesting to look up. I'll look that up. I'm still learning this shite too, right? So anyway, it's a good article about what GPS spoofing is. And the reason why I'm so interested in telling you about GPS spoofing is because of this guy. I think he's like a scientist, or he served in the military or some kind of shit like that. So he has a lot more training in it than I do. And he says GPS spoofing is allegedly, a million times, allegedly, is what causes Havana syndrome. Okay. Now, I'm going to read this stuff, and I don't fully understand it, and I'm still learning it too. I never served in the military, I know if you serve in the military, you take some kind of oath where you can't say everything that you know. But if you did serve in the military or you work for an intelligence agency and you can explain this better than I can, please feel free to chime in, Modifications made to the USA's GPS signal with a digital phase lock loop can provide a global targeting electromagnetic field able to perform global satellite targeting system cyber attack that can bypass passwords and end-to-end encryption. Works by saturating targeted area with electromagnetic field. GPS spoofing. Global tracking of your wireless, mobile, electronic, even cars, electromagnetic illnesses, electromagnetic hypersensitivity syndrome, microwave auditory effect, Havana syndrome attacks, anomalous health incidents. Anyway, he's very smart, and he shows pictures of the shite, how they do it, very smart guy. I think he was a scientist, or he served in the military at one time, so I think he knows even more.
Saturated area produced when combining our GPS spoofing, GPS cyber attacks. Works by saturating a targeted area with an electromagnetic field. Responsible for Havana syndrome attacks caused by prolonged.
Anyway, he has a bunch of videos about it. The graph below is a flowchart hidden by AI and our American government showing how blah 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 hertz is able to be modulated with. Anyway, it's interesting. It's interesting, to look at his stuff. He's a very smart guy. And you say, well, why? Well, because we have had some target individuals diagnosed with Havana syndrome. We had Liliana, who worked for United Nations under Kofi Annan. You remember when Kofi Annan was the head of the UN in New York City? And she was diagnosed with Havana syndrome. And she found implants in her body. Anyway, this is a good guy to look at. You know, you should get Twitter, or now they call it X, and look up his if you go to @TonyR724898814. Okay. Anyway, he's a very smart guy, and another target individual told me about him. And anyway, that's how I think if you're a target individual, you know, you have Havana syndrome because they spoof your GPS coordinates. And that's why I made a video the other day trying to show you how your GPS coordinates can be spoofed, you know. I wasn't just doing that just for the hell of it, you know, because I have nothing better to do. Yeah, and we have had some target individuals diagnosed with Havana syndrome. Now, from what I know, I mean, I am not Havana syndrome expert, okay? I'm not an Havana syndrome expert by no means. From what I know, though, if you do get diagnosed with Havana syndrome, you get $80,000 or maybe like $100,000, which is not a lot considering what you've gone through. And I don't know, like, if you do, you know, get diagnosed with Havana syndrome and you're awarded money by the U.S. government for being a victim of Havana syndrome, I don't know if you can come back and sue the U.S. government or sue other entities that are involved in it. I don't know. So that might be the catch. I don't know, like if you have to sign some kind of gag order that you'll never talk about it again or something, or some non-disclosure agreement. I don't know. I have no idea. So it's something to think about. And here's a video of 60 Minutes talking about Havana syndrome.
Can erase the car's computer data, including its GPS record. There was also a Russian passport.
What's your first name?
Vitaly, Vitalii.
Okay.
Vitaly Kovalev was the driver from St. Petersburg, Russia, not Florida.
Why did you run? Let me be honest with you.
I don't know.
You don't know why you ran?
I don't know.
And we don't know why he ran, but what we learned suggests he was a Russian spy.
What we see here is Vitaly Kovalev fitting exactly this formula.
Christo Grozev is a journalist legendary for unmasking Russian plots. In 2020, he uncovered the names of the Russian secret agents who poisoned Vladimir Putin's rival, Alexei Navalny. Grozev is lead investigator for our collaborator on this story, The Insider, a magazine by Russian exiles. We asked him to trace Vitaly Kovalev.
He studied in a military institute. He studied radio electronics with a particular focus on use within the military of microelectronics. He had all the technology know-how that would be required for somebody to be assisting an operation that requires high technology. And then all of a sudden, after working for 2 years in a military institute,
Anyway,
he up and decides
by 60 Minutes
to become a chef.
So the U.S. government recognizes that Havana syndrome is real, you know. They even have all kinds of shows about it on television. So anyway, like this guy, he explains how GPS spoofing is what causes Havana syndrome, you know. He's a very intelligent guy, definitely a lot smarter in that area than I am, you know. I am by no means, you know, some kind of Havana syndrome expert or anything. But that's what he says, that they spoof your GPS coordinates, and that's how you get Havana syndrome. GPS spoofing has some kind of shite to do with it, you know. So anyway, he's very smart, and he has like a couple of videos.
can carry the oscillate. GPS spoofing, GPS cyber attacks. Works by saturating a targeted area with an electromagnetic field. Responsible for Havana syndrome attacks caused by prolonged exposure to an oscillating pulse electromagnetic field within the range of 200 MHz - 6 GHz. L1 1575.42 MHz GPS microwave carrier signal. The signal we all use with GPS, GNSS, can carry the oscillating voltage signal produced by a digital phase lock loop. It can connect to the wireless signals produced by wireless electronics within the electromagnetic field saturated area produced when combining our GPS signal with the signal produced by DPLL, saturating an area like a Wi-Fi signal, no password needed, and can bypass end-to-end encryption. Electromagnetic fields are used to carry information depending on how those electromagnetic fields are generated, made. They can do different things by carrying a multitude of various.
But anyway, he says GPS spoofing is what causes Havana syndrome, basically, right? And now, so we have had some target individuals diagnosed with Havana syndrome. Not a lot, but some target individuals have been diagnosed with Havana syndrome. The U.S. government is now recognizing that civilians can get Havana syndrome, okay? They are now recognizing that. And then we have this dude. He works for Targeted Justice. I think he's like a real doctor, a real medical doctor, if I'm right. And it says disability due to Havana syndrome in civilians is being recognized by the U.S. government. And it was published. His name is Dr. Len Burr, MD. He works for Targeted Justice, okay? And it is now being recognized. So, and I think you have to contact Targeted Justice, and they'll tell you who you can go to get diagnosed with Havana syndrome. As far as I know of, I mean, and like I said, I am no expert on Havana syndrome. I'm not an expert total expert on GPS spoofing, or, I'm not like a scientist, but this is what I've learned, I am a smart girl, though. So, like, as far as I know of, like, you could only get diagnosed with Havana syndrome in the United States, and I do know targeted individuals who came from other countries like Canada, and they were diagnosed with Havana syndrome in the U.S. by the U.S. government. You can't be a foreigner and come to the United States and get diagnosed with Havana syndrome. The tests are very expensive, though. I think even more expensive than getting scanned for implants. I think it could be the test to see if you have Havana syndrome. It could be very expensive, maybe up to $3,000, and I believe health insurance doesn't cover it, so I just wanted to tell you that. But yeah, that's what I believe, that yeah, basically that's how I believe, Havana syndrome is created, through your GPS coordinates and GPS spoofing. And here's some guy talking about Havana syndrome here. Let's see.
The Havana syndrome that is associated with the diplomats in Havana, Cuba, who started hearing some strange sound in their head, followed by short-term, long-term memory fog, severe head pain, vertigo, and more specifically shocks to the torso and extremities. And Sean Ryan just interviewed a gentleman by the name
Anyway, so that's a show.
of AJ.
There's all kinds of shows on TikTok, on YouTube, on X, Twitter, talking about Havana syndrome. So it's a real thing, you know. It's even recognized by the U.S. government. So I think, you know, the only thing I don't know is because I'm not a lawyer, you know, I don't have a degree in this shite, you know. I'm not a lawyer, so I don't know if you, you know, I don't have any formal training in this shite. But I mean, like, I don't know if you get diagnosed with Havana syndrome, if you can come back and sue the U.S. government or other entities, you know, other companies, other countries for Havana syndrome again, or, you know, if you have to sign some kind of gag order or some kind of non-disclosure agreement that you won't, that you'll just take. I think you get $80,000 to $100,000. You know, if you're diagnosed with Havana syndrome, which is not a lot of money. I mean, it's chunk change, right? It's a very small amount of money. Let's see. So yeah, I think GPS spoofing has something to do with it. And we could ask Google, you know, Havana syndrome. See what Google says. What does Google say? Wow. So here is, yeah, I'm trying to find like an official government website talking about it. Yeah. So they say if you have Havana syndrome, you have headaches, dizziness, blurred vision, tinnitus, vertigo, and that kind of shit, right? I'm trying to find some like government agencies that talking about Havana syndrome. But yeah, that's what I think. I think Havana syndrome is caused by GPS spoofing. That's why I made a video the other day, you know, talking about Havana syndrome. I wasn't just, I mean, talking about GPS spoofing. The other day I made a video on YouTube about GPS spoofing, and that was the reason why, you know, because I think this guy is very smart, obviously smarter than I am, you know, and you know, he's like, I think he was in the military or he was a scientist, and he knows that GPS spoofing is what causes Havana syndrome. So anyway, I'm trying to find like a document or some kind of, I had it on here a long time ago. What happens if you're diagnosed with Havana syndrome? Yeah, I'm trying to find, it was a really good site. It was a good site. Darn, I gotta find it again. It was a really good site. It showed, you know, if you're diagnosed with Havana syndrome, how much money you get. What I saw was you get maybe like $80,000 to $100,000 if you're diagnosed with Havana syndrome. We could also try ChatGPT. Come on, ChatGPT, where are you? Okay, Havana syndrome. All right, ChatGPT. Okay. So Havana syndrome is a term used for a cluster of unexplained health symptoms First reported in 2016 by U.S. diplomats stationed in Havana, Cuba, if I'm right? You have dizziness, loss of balance, ringing in the ears, headaches, nausea, fatigue, etc., right? Okay. Anyway, I could be here forever reading this shite, you know. So I'm trying to see how much money do you get if you are diagnosed with Havana syndrome? See if I can get it to pull it up. So, short answer, there isn't a single fixed payment. There isn't a single fixed payment, but most confirmed cases receive roughly $150,000 to $200,000 as a one-time payment if they qualify under U.S. law. Main compensation: U.S. government under the Havana Act of 2021, eligible U.S. personnel, diplomats, intelligence officers, military family members can receive up to $153,000 base payment. Okay, so it's like a one-time payment. That's what it looks like. Anyway, we have had targeted individuals diagnosed with Havana syndrome, civilians diagnosed with Havana syndrome, people who didn't work for the U.S. government or any kind of shit like that. See if they have it on here. Yeah, they might have it here. Let's see. So, like, by no means am I, you know, some Havana syndrome expert, you know. So, do your own homework. I know if you contact Targeted Justice, if you email them, they can tell you where to go to get. You go see these doctors, and they'll diagnose you with Havana syndrome. The tests are very expensive, though. I think they're like $3,000 or some kind of shit like that. Yeah, you go to Targeted Justice's website, Targeted Justice, okay. You go to their website and, you know, email them and tell them that you're interested in seeing a doctor that diagnoses people with Havana syndrome, and I think they'll help you out, you know. They have an email on here on their website. That's all I know of, you know. I'm still learning. And here they have, read Dr. Len Bird's petitions to the CDC and NIH regarding Havana syndrome. Okay, so they have all kinds of shite here. And Dr. Len Bird, he's like a real medical doctor, you know, like a doctor of medicine, you know. So he definitely knows what he's talking about more than I do, you know. But anyway, it's something to look into if you think you're a target individual, you know. Now, I know for sure, like Liliana, she was and is a target individual from New York, and she used to work with Kofi Annan for United Nations in New York City, and years later she was diagnosed with Havana syndrome by the U.S. government. So it is possible they are diagnosing civilians with Havana syndrome. You know, it is possible. So don't give up. You know, Yeah, at first they were just diagnosing people in the military, people who work for the CIA, people who work for the feds, people, like that with Havana syndrome. But now I think they're diagnosing civilians. So don't give up, and that's who you can contact. And I think this guy is smart, Yeah, I think GPS spoofing has something to do with Havana syndrome. He's very smart. He could explain it a lot better than I can. That's why I did the video the other day showing what GPS spoofing is. Anyway, you guys have a good day or good night, okay? Bye.